Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Emily, and I'll be hosting this series. Welcome to the special interview regarding the inheritance of the estate of Enos Stone, who is an illegitimate child. This case involves legal authorities, including the Attorney General of Canada and the Attorney General of Saskatchewan. The dispute of this case is regarding the inheritance rights of illegitimate children and legitimate children, and the provisions around what happens to some property if they die without a will. The case details. Sarah Stone, deceased in 1890, and she birthed 2 sons while she was unmarried and a number of children while she was married. One of her illegitimate sons, Enos Stone, died in 1918, intestate, which means without a will. He was also unmarried and domiciled in Saskatchewan. Although Sarah Newton had passed, 8 of her legitimate children, Enos Stone's illegitimate brother, William Stone, were alive. The case that I'm analyzing today is the 3rd hearing regarding the estate of Enos Stone. First, the court came to the decision to give the real property to the Government of Canada and personal property to the province of Saskatchewan. Secondly, the court decided that the other illegitimate child, William Stone, would inherit all real and personal property of the deceased Enos Stone. Finally, I'm analyzing the case file from the Supreme Court of Canada. The Government of Canada is appealing that all real and personal property should be inherited by the government. The province of Saskatchewan is stating that at least all personal property of Enos Stone should be inherited by the province of Saskatchewan. And finally, William's lawyer is stating that all real and personal property is intended to be inherited by William Stone himself. These are the 3 options, as it was early decided that none of the legitimate children or grandchildren of Sarah Stone are entitled to inherit any real or personal property of Enos Stone, according to the common and statute laws. I've invited family law specialist of 73 years, Isabella, to be interviewed for this episode. She is able to provide extremely valuable expert insight regarding the more serious implications of this case, since she has studied this case rigorously. Great thanks to her for being willing to indulge this interview. Also, for some background information, my goal is to become a family lawyer. So, as an attempt to become more educated on past family law cases, I have dedicated a series of 25 episodes to review different law cases. The media forms that I've included involve interviews, documentaries, films, and more. My goal of releasing these videos is to educate people on specific and interesting cases that can serve as a valuable learning experiences and promote legal awareness. These videos aim to provide insights into various aspects of legal systems, such as case analysis, legal reasoning, and the implications of the court decisions. They can also shed light on historical and social impact of legal cases. I would also like to draw attention to the fact that the purpose of these videos is educational purposes only and do not constitute legal advice. That being said, let's dive in. Now, to our distinguished guest, Isabella. Please comment on motivation in this case. There are many types of motivation, such as intrinsic, competence, achievement, power, and incentive motivators. This case specifically seems to be lacking clear and specific motivation for how many parties became involved by the end. I suggest that each party in this case had a slightly different motivation for going to court. Inheritance rights were a motivator because there was the deceased estate involved. Estate refers to the person's entire net worth. Financials would automatically be a motivator for the family of the deceased. Any sum of equity would most likely be a big deal for the family members. The total of Enos Stone's estate was just shy of $20,000. This is not a lot of money for a Supreme Court case. This implies that the Supreme Court was more likely bringing clarity to the laws rather than profiting. There is not enough equity associated with this case to prompt the Government of Canada to appeal to the Supreme Court, which indicated that the motivation is clarity and resolution of a law rather than financials. Changes in legislation is a competence motivator for the court as well. The change of inheritance laws and property rights for illegitimate children over time. I suspect that William Stone may have been fighting for this as well as financial benefits. In order for the law to evolve, it needs to be challenged after all. Also, this state may have been wanted in order to put it under a government name. Potential increases of a state would also have been a motivator. For example, if it is expected that there's going to be an increase of economics for any part of that state. Also, it is important to note that the money back in 1924 was significantly more valuable than it is now, although $20,000 isn't a lot compared to now. The legal rulings of the court's decision are influenceable on this case analysis, as it limits the possible results. Precedents affect our legal system in this area of the law greatly. Can you please explain the possible outcomes of this case? The results act as a precedent for how the law should be interpreted regarding most of the rulings decided. These precedents will guide future cases with similar legal questions. Legal professionals refer to this decision and help others analyze their cases and make arguments. It helps ensure that the legal system is applied consistently and fairly, with another reason that the Supreme Court got involved. The court's decision creates implications for the inherent right of illegitimate children. It establishes the interpretation of the term descent. It emphasizes the importance of provincial legislation in determining inheritance rules within a province, and the fact that provincial and federal laws can be very different or similar. It outlines the waiver of Crown's right of escheat, and finally, it outlines the continuity of legislation. The provincial and federal laws can be manipulated or tweaked. Often, cases hinge on the exact wording of legislatures and rulings. The intent of sections are determined by very fine and careful wording. So is the court's ruling. There are normally lots of loopholes or ways to interpret things differently, as a less way aggressive to put it. Furthermore, if the case is narrowed down to two outcomes, William Stone, firstly, has a predeceased Enos Stone, then all the property would either go to the government of Canada or the province of Saskatchewan. However, if William Stone is living, then all of Enos Stone's property would go to William Stone. He is living, and therefore he is to inherit all real and personal property of the predeceased Enos Stone. There were 5 judges, and none of the court dissented to the majority's decision. Let's discuss the court's arguments for constitutional law. What factors affected the results of this case and the implication of the legal reasoning? Furthermore, do you think there was a better decision possible? The particular law in effect is the constitutional law, moreover, the Devolution of Estates Act. The case was dismissed, and all property of Enos Stone was to be inherited by William Stone. Furthermore, this case was upheld as constitutional by the court. I think that this was the correct ruling and justified by legal reasoning. The court's explanation and analysis is very convincing. Additionally, I think that the statute favored the mother over the father of an illegitimate child, which accounts for the mother's nurturing side, where she is more likely to support the child in a non-married relationship. Since this is the case, it makes sense that the mother would inherit her child's proceeds and vice versa. Considering the stigma around illegitimate children back then, it's good that they could at least inherit something from their mother. This also shows a drastic change compared to Blackstone's era of thinking about illegitimate children. What are the social and political implications of the court's judgments? As mentioned, the legal rights of illegitimate children are enforced and create awareness during this case. It promotes a more inclusive and equitable approach to inheritance laws. Since it recognizes the rights of individuals born out of wedlock, it has a positive social implication. When this took place a century ago, there was a division between children born in wedlock and out of wedlock. Illegitimate children were hardly entitled to much, if anything. Nowadays, the laws have drastically changed because children born in wedlock are often viewed in the same light as illegitimate children. It's no longer a term nowadays. This change has happened thanks to cases like this that created more awareness around the issue. I find that thinking that people are people and the fact that everyone should be treated as such gets lost in classifications. Rights should be applied equally regardless of sex, race, age, or illegitimacy, per se. Cases like this would help change society's attitude towards illegitimacy. These rulings challenge historical stigmas associated with illegitimacy and promote a more inclusive and non-discriminatory approach to thinking. This creates a more compassionate audience. It also highlights provincial versus federal jurisdiction aspects. This case opened doors and created headway in the division of real and personal property. The court's judgment also indirectly highlights the importance of political negotiations and agreements. Finally, the court's judgment can influence how similar cases are decided in the future, potentially leading to a more consistent and fair outcome. Thank you, Isabella, for sharing your expertise and valuable insights with the family law with us. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. I've also called up a special guest today who has volunteered to send in a video to feature in this interview. There is an extra special dimension of understanding and knowledge to have an outside opinion from this case. Despite this, our guest still has great comprehension of family law due to her role in an Indigenous family court worker here in Thunder Bay. It is my pleasure to introduce Jill and have her included in this video interview. She will be providing us with information about her knowledge and her area of expertise. Hi everyone, my name is Jill. As mentioned, I do work as an Indigenous family court worker here in Thunder Bay. I've been serving the judicial system for 12 years. However, I got this job and moved to Thunder Bay 4 years ago. Since I've been working in this field for so long, I've seen many different cases. In general, it is always the court's goal to ensure the best interests of everyone involved. Specifically, as an Indigenous family court worker, it is essential that we have cultural-specific knowledge. There are many different needs for different families and different cultures. My role specifically is to assist Indigenous youth and families in contact with family, child protection, and youth court to better understand their options, responsibilities, and rights when appearing before the court. I'm always working to get to the root of the problem and help my clients to bring that up in court. I try to help my clients realize what the root is so we can create a solution together. Often, I follow up many times with clients about their plan of care. My goal is, after all, to help the client as much as possible, in whichever support means necessary. I've briefly been filled in on this discussion case, so I would like to contribute some comments. Firstly, nowadays, the argument of a child being illegitimate or born out of wedlock is generally not considered a valid argument in most legal matters. Children born to unmarried parents typically have the same legal rights and protections as children born to married parents. So many cases are just about determining what is best for the entire family and serving justice according to who put in what. Most of the time, each family member is doing their best, and the court strives to act in a manner that serves the family and the children's best interests. Often, cases involving death and settlement are very tricky because the case and family is often grieving, and the dispute over money adds unnecessary stress to their lives. I might add that often a member of the family does not have everybody's interests at heart, sometimes, so the justice system serves accordingly, normally against the morally corrupt person. There are so many different examples and situations, so it is hard to categorize cases. It's easier to categorize human nature, and eventually the judicial system bases some of its past cases and decisions based on past cases. This is everything I have to share at the moment, and I hope my contributions were helpful. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions for me. Thanks for having me. This concludes this episode and case analysis. I hope everyone enjoyed learning about this case and its implications. Thank you for tuning in, everyone, and see you all next week.